Another day of Donald Trump getting deals that are awesome for the United States as Mark Carney continues to get snubbed onto the global stage. We've seen the trade negotiations devolve to such a level where the sides are screaming and cussing at each other. Always a good sign for Canada, of course, but luckily Doug Ford is out there asking for an apology from the Americans. At the same time that he's asking for that apology, the Bank of Canada, during their rate announcement today, said Canadians be prepared to be poor. That's great as well, but don't worry, Mark Carney and his crew came out with some generational investments on how they are going to rebuild Canada today. They are going to save the day. We'll get into all of the economics around that. It's very, very good, I can assure you. And we have more proof of the media manipulation and what it is doing to Canadian sentiment. We are seeing levels of Canadian cringe that were once thought impossible. And we actually have a really interesting theory from an account that's been covering the trade updates on why Donald Trump is doing what he does. There's a lot to talk about in today's video, so let's get into it.
Good morning, Griff. Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, Brian. President Trump has arrived here in South Korea, the third nation on his Asia tour that started over the weekend in Malaysia, then to Japan, now here to South Korea, where President Trump just announced a new trade deal has been signed with South Korea's second largest trading partner, the United States.
And we had a tremendous meeting today with South Korea. I think the meeting a lot was determined, very much determined. And we made our deal. We pretty much finalized a trade deal. And we discussed some other things having to do with national security, etc.
So, of course, great to see the U.S. getting another trade deal. However, this one was mostly announced, so we're not going to double count this announcement. This is the finalizing of the original preliminary agreement. Still great to see that it's being finalized and move forward.
Tomorrow, the high-stakes meeting between President Trump and China's leader Xi Jinping will take place. One meeting that is not on the table anymore is the meeting that President Trump said he was thinking about having with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un after the North Korean dictator's foreign minister visited Russia.
I know Kim Jong-un very well. We get along very well. We really weren't able to work out timing. We have President Xi is coming tomorrow, and that was something that obviously is very important to the world, to all of us. You'll be watching very carefully. We're meeting right here, and we're all looking forward to that. I think it's going to work out.
All eyes will be on this Trump-Xi meeting, and it has to do with the theory that we're going to talk about at the end of the video, but this will set the trend kind of where a lot of the global negotiations are going to go, what the trend will be, and if people have to be scared or not, because every time there's an announcement around just US and China, the markets go nuts, Bitcoin goes nuts. But let's get a quick update on how well things went for Mark Carney in the same place.
Prime Minister, you chat with the president at all, sir?
Very good. Had a very good conversation with all the presidents.
When Mark Carney touched down in South Korea, it was in the shadow of Air Force One, a sign that wherever the Prime Minister goes, the U.S. trade war also follows him.
Lurking in the water.
After arriving, he was whisked away to a dinner hosted by the South Korean president that Donald Trump is also at. Carney ducked U.S. reporters' questions about his message to Trump in advance of the meeting, saying he had a message for the president, referencing the South Korean leader. Cameras caught Carney and Trump acknowledging each other before dinner with a friendly finger gun going both ways. Trump and Carney are seated across from each other at the dinner, and with only 8 leaders in the room, they're likely to have some kind of conversation at dinner, which would mark the first time since Trump called off trade talks that the pair would have spoken. If they do actually talk about the potential 10% tariff and trade talks being suspended by Trump is another question, because Trump did post on social media earlier on Wednesday that he didn't fly all the way to South Korea to talk with Canada.
That was the big thing. He specifically said, hey, I did not go to South Korea to talk with Canada. Also, in all of the footage that came from this event, they almost didn't speak at all. There was some cordial head nods, like he said, some finger guns, but there was very little actual dialogue, even with them at the table. I watched a bunch of it that was available, obviously the entire dinner, I didn't watch that start to finish, but from what was available in the clips that I saw, they barely even looked at each other. And then even when they were lining up, they were positioned separately.
Now, while the Trump issue is looming over Carney, he's going to have a busy schedule that's not related to the U.S. while he's here in South Korea. Outside of attending the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, Carney will tour a South Korean shipyard that's one of the 2 final bidders to replace the decrepit fleet of Canadian subs. Carney also visited the other bidder in Germany earlier in the year, so he's taking a bit of a political test drive with both main competitors on one of the largest defense contracts that Canada is ever going to make. A senior government official didn't have a timeline for reporters when asked how soon a decision on delivery or who could be winning the bid would be made.
This is going to be an absolute massive contract, so obviously I want the right decision to be made. However, I am not a submarine expert, so when it comes to the quality of subs, I'm not exactly sure which country I would prefer us to work with. Because some of the sentiment that I've seen is, even though that Canada's sub fleet is decrepit, to use his word in the video, that the subs that Canada would be buying are still not even top of the line, and the technology wouldn't even be worth it. So it could be one of our largest military contracts ever, and it could be a useless spend. But I don't know, so you guys are going to have to weigh in down below.
Now, the other big event that Carney's going to have is sitting down with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday. That is a major shift in Canada-China relations. It'll be the first time that the Prime Minister and the Chinese President sat down since Justin Trudeau was in Beijing back in 2017. A senior government official wouldn't outline details for what Carney hopes to get out of the meeting. And what the Prime Minister has said publicly is that this meeting isn't about a transaction, it's about building a relationship, so don't expect a deal on those punishing canola tariffs to come out of this meeting immediately.
Mark Carney almost always sets the tone of, hey, don't expect the deal. And people are like, yeah, he likes to under-promise and over-deliver. The only problem is he keeps under-delivering too. We don't have any deals, and he's going to meet with Xi. There's going to be no deal. There's going to be no progress, and it's because, for some reason, Canada is so frustrating to work with that we've led the ambassadors to deal with this. I want to give the credit to Brian Lilly from the Toronto Sun. He's the one who broke this story originally. He titled the article, "Yelling F-Bombs, Threats, and the Breakdown of Canada-US Relations. The relationship that has hit a sour patch that is going to be hard to come back from." And he said, when it comes to Canada-US relations, the Canadian side is a rudderless ship. Yeah, I mean, we're going into the China meeting saying we're not getting anything out of it. There's no plan or strategy that the public can see. The PM is off in Asia as premiers across the country are freelancing, and a once stable relationship melts down. As baseball fans turned their attention to the World Series gathering in the National Gallery in Ottawa, it was supposed to celebrate the cross-border relationships, and it turned sour. Pete Hoekstra, Donald Trump's ambassador to Canada, was seen tearing a strip off David Patterson, Ontario's representative in Washington. It's been described by those who witnessed it as a heated exchange, a one-way conversation, and yelling with plenty of F-bombs, just what you want to see happening to Canada during the trade negotiations. But of course, Doug, the liberal slug who stinks like a pug, has to make it all about himself, and he is going to continue to double down on what he's doing, because we'll be getting into the Canada cringe. We have a warning. There is a Canada cringe warning towards the end of the video when we get into the comments, but this is why Doug Ford continues to double down. Now, after everything Doug, the liberal slug who stinks like a pug, Chub Ford himself has done, he wants the apology.
My second question is, the Globe and Mail has a piece that speaks about Ambassador Hoekstra, to use a blunt phrase, cursing out your Ontario representative in the United States at a meeting. What do you say to that? This was related to your advertisement related to Donald Reagan.
Yeah.
What's your response
She just said Donald Reagan.
to Ambassador Hoekstra's words?
Come on, Ambassador. He's a guy. You know something? I like him. Pete, you got to call Dave up and apologize. It's simple. You know, the cheese slipped off the cracker. I get it. You're ticked off. But call the guy up because you're a good guy, and Dave's my champion. The guy is just instrumental in these trade deals down in Washington. And, you know, something, people get hot.
How's that going? If he's instrumental in the trade deals, how's that going? Also, leave it to Chub Ford himself to go straight to the food analogy.
They get heated. I get heated sometimes.
Oh, do you?
But just call the guy up and bury the hatchet.
I love that he's on his good guy tour after the ad went viral, because even all of the appearances he made on American TV, he's like, look, we should be best friends. I love the Amcan Fortress. I just want us to work together. Newsflash, buddy. Weeks ago, you said you would shut off power to the United States with a smile on your face. You didn't just have a smile on your face. You specifically said, with a smile on my face. You're not helping here, pal. So let's smarten up, especially when we just had this level of sentiment come out of the Bank of Canada. He says needs to be a wake-up call for Canadians, for Canada's government, to show how bad of a position that we're in, that the Bank of Canada is saying, be prepared to be poor.
You know, what that means is that unless something else changes, our incomes will be lower than they otherwise would have been. They'll grow, but they'll grow along a lower, this was the old path. Now there's a new path. which is below the old path. There are things the country can do to try to bend that curve up, but those aren't things monetary policy can do. These are more structural changes. I mean, fundamentally, as a senior deputy governor has hammered many times, we need to get our productivity growth up. And if we can do that as a country, we can bend that curve up. So, I mean, I think what's most concerning is that unless we change some other things, our standard of living as a country, Canadians, is going to be lower than it otherwise would have been.
We're going to be earning less money. The standard of living is going to be lower than it would have been. Monetary policy can't change it. It has to be structural. What he's saying is, government, you are the problem. Government, you're messing this up. He's saying these are fixable issues. He can't obviously call out the government directly. He has to be political with his language. But that is the message that's being sent here. So we know, of course, with that message being sent, the government's going to be working on the best stuff for Canada, right? Well, what was the information we just got? The industrial carbon price focus of Carneys climate strategy consultation, says sources. 2 senior officials at national environmental advocacy groups who met with the federal ministers developing the plan in recent weeks say the emphasis on industrial carbon pricing in their discussions and Prime Minister Mark Carney's commitment to it during the election makes them confident the government is planning major changes to the policy. They asked not to be named due to the private nature of the meetings. Both told the Canadian press Carney has given the strategy a great deal of personal attention. The Environment Minister, Julie Debruzin, was kind enough to weigh in and say, at a high level, I can say the industrial carbon pricing is an important part of how we do fight climate change and at the same time how we build a future economy. AKA, Carney and his crew continue economic arson by burning down Canada's economy by scaring off investment. Why would any international corporation or investors inside of Canada want to develop and build when you know you're going to be hamstrung by environmental policies? Well, here we have the next piece of breaking news. This did just come out today. Now, keep in mind, they are talking about generational investment. Let's get into what he's talking about investing in. This is generational investment to build Canada.
5 will include generational investments designed to grow our economy and build a stronger Canada and even a stronger Canadians. Every person in our nation, regardless of their gender, regardless of their background, regardless of their identity, must be able to live free from violence and harassment and to participate fully in our country's success and in our country's future. The sad reality is that we're still seeing incidents of gender-based violence in our country, as well as rising hate and violence targeting 2SL LGBTQ+I communities are a stark reminder that equality and safety, I insist, equality and safety must continue to be defended. That's why in Budget 2025, we'll provide sustained funding to advance equality and inclusion across Canada. This serious long-term commitment will ensure constant progress towards equality and safety for women, for girls, and for 2SL LGBTQI+ people.
Cracking down on the international criminals who are creating almost all of the danger when it comes to these communities? No way. Gotta keep the immigration running. But when it comes to generational spending during one of the largest deficits that we're going to have in Canadian history, my personal opinion, it will be probably the largest, they continue to double down, and Mark Carney confirmed it. To build Canada strong, we have to protect and empower each other, and he talks about the announcement there because we know the Canadian government cares about Canadians and doing what is right, and that's why we end up with charts like this. This is from Daniel Foch. He said, Canada productivity growth is dead. So with all of this generational spending, I guess what we needed is more spending on DEI, of course. Canada did not have enough of that. I do want to thank Daniel for putting this arrow here. We would not have understood because the gap is so large, we almost would have missed that the 2019-2023 chart is technically there. It's just pretty much zero because we have a Canadian government who is burning down the economy, which is why during the jobs crisis, the unemployment crisis, businesses are leaving, investments leaving, productivity is majorly down, GDP per capita is continuing to plummet. The Liberal MPs want to campaign on behalf of foreign people ahead of the Canadians. If you are curious, this is an entire entire crowd full of the hey buddy how doings who came here through Operation Currybomb. And all of us critically thinking Canadians know that Ontario needs highly skilled workers to power our economy. Today, they were joined by 60 newcomers, and these are the highly skilled workers that Canada would not survive without. But here we are getting to the cringe warning, so we have the cringe alarm. And that is your warning if you are worried about top-tier Canadian cringe. Like I said, levels we've never seen, otherwise thought impossible. Here we have this video, and it is the economic impact of tensions with Canada on Western New York. It is from a Buffalo news station. So they brought on an expert who was talking about the trade issues with Canada and how the Canadians have stopped coming to Buffalo and why the Canadians have stopped coming to Buffalo. Needless to say, he did not mention that Canadians are going broke as one of the reasons. All of the reasons came down to trade negotiations, and Canadians are scared of ICE, and they're worried about getting captured at the border or just trying to come into the US, because that's a real thing. But the reason why they're worried about that, and we'll get into the comments in a second, trust me, is because the CBC News, The National, continues to put out videos like this. ICE raids and fear tactics. Is America becoming a police state? And look at the thumbnail that they used there. They've got the scary guy in military uniform, and this is the sentiment that is spreading in Canada. And something that's really funny too is even though there was massive Japan announcements, like I talked about in yesterday's video, how we might be losing more companies in Canada, every news station is going nuts for Hurricane Melissa. In the last 24 hours, CTV National News did 16 videos just talking to Jamaicans in Canada about how worried they are for Jamaica. 16 videos in 24 hours. None of them got into the trade details of all of the positive announcements in Japan and what that means for Canada, because they refuse to shed any positive light on the US. So now with the context of what this video was saying and what we saw with some of the media manipulation, how this continues to happen, let's check out the top comment here and check in on Canadian sentiment, okay? If you are wondering why Canadians are keeping their dollars out of USA, ask yourself this question. Do Ukrainians vacation in Moscow? They see Canada and the US as Ukraine and Russia. Very good analogy there. But your president said you don't want anything we have, including our time and money. Canada is starting to boycott made in USA cars. We're not afraid. We're disgusted. I'll never go back. See you in 4 years? I don't think so. It'll probably be generations. Yes, generations. Don't hold your breath waiting for Canadians to return. What I've been seeing on a number of social media posts is we'll return after Trump is gone, to we're not coming back ever. We are done with America. A small but growing number of us now consider the United States to be the biggest international threat to Canada. Given that, why would we visit Western New York? Canadian here, you could thank DJT and Ambassador Pete Hoekstra for constantly patronizing us, disrespecting us, and threatening to annex our country. The attitude to change toward the USA. Canadians are fed up. We know that even when Trump leaves office, there are around 77 million people that voted for him and will most likely vote for another person just like him in the future. Relations with Canada may return to somewhat normal after Trump leaves office, but it will never be the same as it was before he was elected. Not in 4 years, not in 10 years, not ever. And the reason they're referencing the 4 years number is because in the video, they said one of the sentiment was Canadians will wait 4 years before we go back. Oh, should be 0% of Canadians going over. Come on, Canada, we can do better. Let's get that number down to 0 for all of them. Not see you in 4 years, but see you never. We're done with you. Yeah, Canadian flag. And the best part about all of these, I'm assuming mostly liberal boomers who are commenting all of this stuff, is when you say, okay, so you're fighting for Canada sovereignty. Tell us, what's a Canadian? Who's allowed to be here? Are there any rules around that? And somehow there's no rules when it comes to that. As soon as the US wants to be involved, it's whoa, whoa, whoa. No more yearly trips to Vegas. Not even a stopover in the US, done. Oh no, Mike and his buddy going down on their degenerate gambling trips, they're gonna have to stop because Mike is so pro-Canada. And how much the Canadians slurp down the mainstream media propaganda. I'm personally concerned about visiting the US because US media reports of ICE incidents at the border. I don't buy the argument, if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear, because of the US reports on ICE heavy-handedness. I used to visit museums in Buffalo and Rochester 7 times a year. No longer. So this person thinks as an innocent legal visitor to the United States, they're going to get arrested by ICE, or at the very least, there's a risk of it. And that's why I showed the other video for context, because we're seeing people are just slurping up the media. And this comment here, Canadian here, we will not visit America under any circumstances. It is now a fascist dictatorship. I've been visiting America my whole life and worked for an American company out of Canada for 25 years. I am completely disgusted with America. 77 million Americans voted for that orange scumbag and that despicable GOP. We're not coming back in 4 years. We're done with the US. And if you're curious, every single comment when I went down is of vindictive, liberal, arrogant Canadians talking about how much better they are than Americans and how bad Donald Trump is. The Canadian population is probably one of the easiest to manipulate in the entire world. We saw it during COVID, and it's worked so well that this account, who's been covering the trade war, says he put out this response, which is what they said in the other video, that for those who are asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada. That was from Donald Trump. And this account said, think big picture, think strategically like Donald Trump. He's trying to push Canada into a desperation play where they will strike trade deals with China, knowing he's holding a USA deal with Chairman Xi in his back pocket that will undercut Canada completely. I don't think that account is too far off base with their speculation there. It seems like Canada is going to get played off of China. Canada has been left with zero economic leverage, and it's so bad that the best thing we can do is get generational investment inside of DEI. We can see from both online sentiment and conversations I hear in person that Canadians are that riled up against Donald Trump, where they're saying they are done with America forever. They think America is the enemy of Canada and is going to try and sign a deal with China and make them our #1 trading partner. That's how brainwashed Canadians have gotten, that instead of trying to build a relationship with the largest economy in the world, we are going to set economic arson, continue to blame them. When we see our government talking about, oh, we're going to invest in DEI with the massive deficits, we can see they're blocking private investment with more carbon taxes, more green rules. They are destroying Canada's economy domestically, laying all that blame on America. Canada, this is your wake-up call. We need accountability. We have liberal politicians wanting to bring in more immigrants when we have a job crisis. We have liberal politicians wanting to set money on fire for bullcrap programs that shouldn't even exist. We have liberal politicians who are actively blocking business from happening inside of Canada. Give your head a shake so that we can get back on track with the United States. But if you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to get these videos out in front of more people. We are trying to grow the channel. If you want to support the channel, you can do it through the link down below. You can also do it directly through YouTube. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.